All right, 7 minutes after 7 here on the AM show. It's now time for my banner. And I'm happy to say that the Deputy Minister of Health is my guest this morning, Dr. Victor Bompo. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mama.
Yeah. So a lot of things have been happening in the world of health, if you like. But let's start with a subject that either we misunderstood it as a people or message just wasn't carried out well. This Ebola tests. Where are we with it, really, after Parliament raised some questions?
I think you sure do know how to choose them. That's a very emotive topic, but I'll try my best to explain. So I think, like you rightly said, let's take a few steps back. I mean, Ebola has been with us since December 2013. Almost 30,000 people have been affected. More than 10,000 people have died. And it's still with us. The last time I checked, I think in Guinea and Sierra Leone, there were 20 new cases a week up to the 21st of June. The thing about Ebola is that once it is anywhere, then it can be everywhere because the world has changed. And this epidemic was completely different in that it affected more than one country. It went to the capitals and so on. So we need to find an effective way to stop it. And I think you know the role that His Excellency the President played in getting the world's attention to making sure that we have an effective barrier against Ebola. It is in this same light that I think African leaders appealed to international organizations to help to find a vaccine and some medicines for Ebola. So I think through a competitive process, the University of Health and Allied Sciences bid to be one of the sites for doing an Ebola vaccine trial, and they were successful. However, I think that, like the Honorable Minister said in his speech, his statement to Parliament, because Ebola evokes so much fear, I think perhaps the public education could have been done a bit better, because things then got a little bit out of hand.
So you'd agree, you agree that because of maybe lack of communication, that's why we raised the sort of questions that we raised and the positions that people hold today.
And I think the positions are absolutely legitimate. It's within the rights of people to know what is happening, and I think that they raised the right questions. I think Parliament raised the right questions. So I also think that the Honourable Minister set a clear way forward about how we could go about it. I think it's something that has not happened in this way before, and I'll tell you why. Hohoe is a center of international repute. So they've done more than 30 clinical trials there since it was set up in
Hohoe?
Yes. Since it was set up in 1986 as a WHO center. That was where a drug called ivermectin was tried out for what we call onchocerciasis, or river blindness. That was where we did some tests to show that chloroquine was no longer effective as a drug for malaria. So it's a place that has collaborated with so many organizations, the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland, USA, WHO, UNICEF, and so on. So its pedigree is unparalleled. So I think it came naturally that perhaps because they have the infrastructure and the people to do the work, it would be chosen. We also have a Food and Drugs Authority, which by law, the Public Health Act 851, is mandated to look at, to review applications to do these kinds of tests. And so the law in itself was followed to the letter. FDA has the mandate to form what they call a clinical trials committee. There was an ethics committee that looked at it. So it was done in that way. I think the lacuna, where there was some kind of gap, was that, as has been done so many times before, since 2004, we've had 54 applications to do clinical trials. 43 have been approved. 26
and carried out?
Yes. 26 of those were for medications or drugs. 14 of them were for vaccines, and the rest, the 3, were for medical devices. So it's nothing new. But this one, I think, And normally what happens is that you give the approval and then the community engagement happens.
Okay.
I think the world has changed now. You know, we have the internet, we have social media and so on. So whilst that process was going on, information had already gotten out that this was going to happen, and it was not managed properly. So this is something that I think under the leadership of Parliament probably will find a way to do things better next time.
Isn't it also because it's Ebola? So
absolutely.
Once it's Ebola, it's a big deal.
Absolutely, and that's the point that you made and the point that I made as well. But you see, the interesting thing about Ebola is that it is a clear and present danger. Once there's one case of Ebola anywhere, you know, it can easily move to another place. So we must all, as we have done in Ghana under the leadership of His Excellency the President, try and find a lasting solution. It is our problem. And if you look at the epidemiology of Ebola and how it happened in the past in East Africa and Central Africa, when it comes, it does come again. It goes away, it comes again. So it's best we have a lasting solution. So there's that tension between helping to find that lasting solution and also what the vaccine will do to Ghanaians. And I think the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, they've raised very legitimate questions. And I'm happy to say that last week I participated in a hearing of the Select Committee on Health in Parliament, where I think dialogue is beginning to work.
Okay.
You know, so I think in all, it will be a good thing for Ghana, so that we're very clear about how to go forward, whether to go forward or not, how to go forward, so that for next time we'll know how to deal with these things.
Is the world making a mockery of our stance? Because, you know, I listened to a bit of international reporting on the subject after Parliament raised that question, and some even saying that let's test these officials before, you know, we come and test ordinary people. And the news was read, the report was in a way as if they were laughing at us.
No, absolutely not. I think, I mean, last week I was in Geneva at the World Health Organization, where I participated in a joint coordinating board meeting of TDR. TDR is the organization under WHO which is responsible for tropical diseases research. Incidentally, it is chaired by a Ghanaian lady, well, a Swedish lady of Ghanaian origin called Professor Hannah Akufo, which I found very interesting. But I think that they do respect the view that Ghana has taken. First of all, we have the pedigree. We've been doing studies here for a long time. I mentioned the FDA. The FDA has been designated as a regional center for regulatory excellence, which means that it helps other countries to do their regulation. So, and even at this TDR, I was pleased to note that Ghana has been chosen as also a regional center for research. So I think the School of Public Health here at Legon is going to benefit from a grant. So the pedigree is unparalleled. I mean, we have people like Prof. Koram, Prof. Japon, who've done lots of studies. I think it's also, for me, shows how developed our democracy has been, that people take interest in what is happening to them. So, you know, you don't have people, you know, being guinea pigs anymore. You just put anything into anybody's body. People need to know, and I think it's in the right direction. What I'm happy to say is that, or what I'm happy to note is that the Minister of Health has been very clear in the way that he thinks that we should come out of this. In the end, I think people would respect Ghanaians more. Finally,
on this matter, how much was supposed to go for those who came forward or stepped forward to use themselves?
I do not know the exact figure. That was determined by the Ethics Committee. Now, what it is that I think there's some confusion about whether it was remuneration. It's not, you know, one of the things about when you're doing a clinical trial is that you're not supposed to let people benefit from it or profit from it, because it might be a form of inducement which might be prejudicial to the outcomes.
But isn't that how it came across, you know, like a mobile phone and 250 Ghana cedis or something of the sort?
I'll tell you so I was making the point that it shouldn't be an inducement, but however, you must compensate people for the time that they lose. You know, when you put something into somebody's body, the person has to keep coming to the clinic to check to see, you know, whether there's an immune response and all that. So you compensate the person for the time, but it shouldn't be so much that it's an inducement. Now, we're also in modern times. You know, you have certain measures that are put in place to make sure that if the thing is going not so well, it is stopped. So you have an independent doctor who would monitor. You have a board that will monitor. The ethics committee itself can stop the trial. The FDA can stop the trial. If I am a subject of the trial and I have a problem, it's easier for me to call on a mobile phone. Back in the day, you'd have to go and trudge to the hospital and so on. So, you know, there are things.
Oh, so the phone is just, you know, to aid communication.
Well, like you, that is what I have heard. You know, the Ministry of Health has to take an appellate function. The Food and Drugs Authority is an agency under the Ministry of Health, and they report to the Minister of Health. So we were also trying to seek some of these answers, and these are some of the things that came up. But there are institutions that have been set up by our law to deal with these issues, and they are working perfectly.
Okay, so we'll see what the committee in Parliament will arrive
Absolutely.
at and where we take it from.
Yes.
Let's talk about NHIA and NHIS. First of all, do we have a new CEO?
Yes, I think His Excellency the President a week or a little more than a week ago caused there to be an announcement that Mr. Nathaniel Otu is the new acting CEO of the National Health Insurance Authority. He used to be the deputy CEO.
Okay, so he's now taking full control. But what seemed to be the problem at the NHIA or with the NHIS? Because there are so many hospitals that the authorities still owe.
Okay. You know, I always like to take 2 or 3 steps back. I think when you get so close to issues in Ghana, sometimes we get caught up in the very minute details without looking at the big picture. So permit me to take a few steps back. And I always like to do that when I talk to my colleagues, when I go out, you know, internationally. First of all, the health insurance scheme in Ghana is very highly praised. I mean, people think that it's one of the best things that could have happened to Ghana. It's the largest social insurance or health intervention scheme in Ghana. There are more than 10 million people on it, and because of that health insurance scheme, last year I think more than 30 million hospital visits occurred because of the health insurance scheme. Now, if you look at the health indices, then over the last 10 years, things are getting much better, and it's partly due to the health insurance scheme. I'll give just one index. Under 5 mortality rate. It's gone down more than 50% from 2003 to 2013. We just had the results of the Ghana Demographic and Health Survey. So it is a fantastic scheme. It has challenges. Like every other, if you talk to people in the Philippines, if you talk to people in Thailand, a health insurance scheme, you know, goes through certain transitions, and ours is no different. So we have challenges. A challenge is not a failure. A challenge is the seed out of which success or failure can be born. So it depends on...
But you're supposed to be learning from those challenges and improving it.
And
we seem to be hearing the same story with NHIS.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I think government is taking it completely seriously and making sure that, number one, the health insurance scheme is here to stay. It's not going anywhere because it's of great benefit. Number two, government will do whatever it takes to make sure that it stays and it works very well. It's like it's going through growing pains. So what is happening in simple terms is that the income is not now able to match the expenditure. So 2 things have to happen. The first one is to find new sources of income. And number 2, to make sure that what is already being given is used in a more efficient manner. And those 2 things are happening. But it can't happen overnight. It's a huge scheme, and it takes time to do the kind of recalibration that is happening now.
Are you allowing the authority to raise funds by themselves?
They have some innovative schemes. I mean, I was at a board meeting last week where they talked about certain innovative schemes. So at the end of the day, government is the ultimate guarantor. So government will make sure that all the funds are paid. You know that a few weeks ago, 261 million cedis was released to the authority to pay out claims. And as I speak, I can tell you on authority that His Excellency the President, the Minister of Health, have directed that this be of utmost importance. And very soon, you'll see that certain things will be announced which will make the scheme an even better scheme.
I'm also reliably informed that payments would make up to like December 2014. So when it comes to 2015, you haven't made any payment yet. And per the plan, it's okay if you owe 3 months, because that's how long the administrative procedure would take. But if it's a 6 and plus, then we're in trouble.
We're not in trouble. What I can say is that, yes, you know, if I were running a clinic and, you know, I had given service and I was owed claims, you know, it's difficult, and I think government recognizes that. What we are doing is to make sure that we close the gap as quickly as possible. Like you rightly said, the scheme is designed such that we're always 3 months in arrears. Now it's getting more than 3 months. I'm confident that very soon another payment will be made. But you see, we are not just working to pay and always have the same problem. We're working to fix it so that it does not happen again. And that's
what is the challenge? What's the difficulty? Because in terms of the taxes that we pay, I mean, it's paid ahead. So you have the money sitting there. You just have to release it. What seemed to be the challenge here?
And the Ministry of Finance is releasing it. But I'm going back to what I said the first time. I said that so you have income and expenditure, and the income is not able to match the expenditure because the scheme is getting so popular that more people are getting on it. So you know the traditional sources by which we get the income into the scheme. Number one, the 2.5% National Health Insurance levy from VAT, then the 2.5 basis points from SNP workers, and then the premiums that people pay, which is, I think, 4 to 5%. Is not much. Now we have a scheme that is, you know, it takes care of 95% of all the diseases that anybody can suffer from. You know, it has a huge exemption regime. You know, by our demographics, there are lots of people who are under 18. You know, so you know, we have a lot of people who don't actually pay any premiums and so on. So, you know, there's a huge burden on the scheme, and what we need to do, like I said, is to find alternate sources, increase the income into the scheme.
Are we considering premium increments?
All options are on the table.
We were talking one-time premium before. Are we still considering that?
I think you are so last year. That is not off the table.
Oh, that's off the table officially.
Yeah. I mean, that was before I even started work at the ministry. That had been off the table. So
okay.
I don't know why you're bringing it up.
Oh, okay. No, well, just asking.
That's fine.
Okay. So are we talking premium increments?
I think all the options are on the table. We need to, you know, the things that we'll do immediately. For example, looking at, I talked about efficiency within the scheme. So looking at claims processing, making it more efficient, looking at e-claims so that facilities can electronically put in their claims. That makes things faster. Looking at capitation, you know, expanding capitation. All these are things that we can do to make the funding more efficient. If you look at it in terms of the amount of money that is going to health insurance or even into health, government is spending more than $1 billion every year on health. It's a phenomenal increase. But then we need to make sure that more of the money is going to do what it's supposed to do. And that is the challenge for us as a ministry, for our agencies, to look at how we become more efficient.
I think you should be looking at the private insurance. Some of them have done really well. They scrutinize a lot of things before they make payments. And I think maybe you can just turn to them and learn a few things from them.
And I think we're learning from everywhere. One thing I can tell you is that the National Health Insurance Authority, I have been impressed. And because I've worked, in my previous job, I worked in a few other countries. And I think the Health Insurance Authority can be, you know, compared to any other you know, insurance authority anywhere in the world. They're working very hard. There are things that they need to, you know, work, expand on and so on. And we will get there. Like I said, it's not something that we've not seen before. In Thailand, they had the same problem. In a few other countries, you know, they had a deficit and now they have a surplus. If you do it right, what we shouldn't do is to panic so that we start thinking of taking some drastic measures. I think we're at a point where we need to tweak things so that we get it better. But in terms of the health outcomes, I mean, I have no doubt in my mind at all that the health insurance scheme is responsible for some of the fantastic outcomes we're having.
Let's talk cholera now. I think for about 2 weeks now, we've said that we are ready for cholera. But really, are we?
Who said that?
Because when you look at Kumasi, because we've been doing a lot of cholera education, and we've been visiting some of the health facilities in the Greater Accra region, following that huge number that we recorded last year in the Greater Accra region. And so, let me not take it from where I've heard. Are we ready for cholera?
I think that's a dangerous question. You know, you can never be ready for anything until you face the ultimate test. what I can tell you is that we've learned from what happened last year, and we're putting measures in place to make sure that it doesn't expand or explode to the point where it got to last year. Last year, I think, was not something that we're proud of. This year, we're very quick off the blocks, looking at it at two levels. The first level is the multi-sectoral level, because a lot of the time, the things that cause cholera to come about are beyond the remit of the health ministry. So that, it has to do with personal hygiene, environmental sanitation, especially how we dispose of our liquid waste. So those are things that we need to look at. So at the multi-sectoral level, we have an interministerial group consisting of NADMO. It's chaired by the coordinator of NADMO, the deputy ministers of health, communications, local government, water resources. We also have WHO, UNICEF, and then my colleagues from the Ghana Health Service, where we meet on a weekly basis to update each other on what we are doing. Everybody has a role to play. Local government to do with the disposal of liquid waste and so on, water resources to provide potable water and so on. So that's at the multi-sectoral level. Now at our own level at the Ministry of Health, we're working with the Ghana Health Service to make sure that the facilities are ready. We've provided some funding. Government has provided funding to do a large procurement for the fluids.
Is that enough?
Yes, at this stage it is. Yes.
Okay.
So to provide fluids, to provide the PPEs, to provide all the things that we need. That's number one. Number two, government is looking at a temporary and a permanent way of getting the facilities ready. So I think 2 weeks ago, Friday, I paid a visit with my colleagues to La, to Ridge, and then they continue to some of the other facilities, looking at where people would be placed if they come in. And we have a temporary measure, and then we have a permanent measure. So we're going to be building within the next 6 weeks or so permanent facilities, so people will not lie on benches and so on.
Do we have funds for that?
Yes, it's already ongoing. Our development partners have also been fantastic. Danida has provided us with a large donation to help us with our cholera preparations. DFID provided us with a lot of facilities for Ebola and cholera. USAID, WHO provided us with 4.5 tons of what they called diarrhea kits, which we've distributed to the hotspots. UNICEF is doing a fantastic job. I know that EU has provided 600,000 euro through the Red Cross. We're using some of the funds to also train rapid response teams, because if you're managing cholera, there are three things that you need to do: public education, environmental sanitation, which is not within our remit, and then treat the cases that come, and then make sure you trace the contacts. So we have these rapid response teams in place that will go into the communities to look for the contacts of the people who've come to the facilities. And I think that is why when you went to the facilities, they were telling you they are ready, because things are being done differently this year.
Okay. I hope that this won't come as a surprise, but how much is the central medical stores, the distraction affecting this? And then again, I have another related issue. The Pharmacy Council is appealing for people to make donations. If you're able to donate 1 Ghana cedi, it will go a long way in trying to restock what we lost in that fire. But the question I was asking last week was, how about the people who were culpable, the people that we're investigating? How far with that?
Okay, so which question do you want me to answer
That's
first? Okay, people who were culpable. We're still waiting for the final report. I think the Minister of Health has asked his colleagues at Interior about when the report is coming. I think as soon as it comes, then action will be taken. Some colleagues were interdicted, and so it's based upon the report that any decisions will be taken, I think, in conjunction with the AG's department and so on.
Do we have timelines for that? Because we have to see some people not only punished, but pay back.
No, I agree with you entirely. I mean, when I last checked, this was a $120 million, that had gone down the drain. It disrupted our health delivery, and so it's something that I don't think that government is taking lightly at all. But at the same time, we need to go through due process. So I know that in a very short time this report will come out. I cannot give you timelines as I sit here, but as soon as the report comes out, then I'm confident that the minister will act on it.
When you interdict people, do you pay them?
I think they're on half salary or something, but I have to check.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so back to how much has that affected preparedness for cholera?
I think, you know, the government was quick off the blocks. If you remember that when this happened, I think some amount of money was pledged and given to the Ministry of Health. We have also got an alternate temporary central medical store, because when it happened, you know, there were already drugs and other commodities on the way. We had to find a place to put it. That has been done. There's a temporary place where a lot of, you know, the stocks are coming in. So it's not been easy. I mean, I will not sit here and pretend that it's been very, you know, just easy getting back in stride. It disrupted us, but under the circumstances, I think that we are doing well.
But is it also true that other people were also keeping their things there?
I'm not aware of that.
Oh, okay. So what we had in the stores was for us as a country?
Yes, it was for us as a country. We had, you know, it was we had all manner of things. For example, we had the V-scans, which is something that His Excellency the President is very interested in, where, you know, for every what we call CHIPS compound, there would be, it was provided by GE, you know, which, so 400 of those got burnt, which is a simple scanning device that would let trained personnel at the lower levels be able to pick up abnormalities when there are pregnancies and so on. You know, maternal mortality is one of our challenges, you know, so we lost things that, you know, some were not completely for us, they were in the process of being paid for and all that. But it's a store where we keep all our, or we kept all our, most of our equipment, most of our drugs and so on. So it was a huge blow to us.
What kind of lessons have we learned? Are we building stores in the other regions so that instead of keeping everything here in Accra, we can carry theirs to them as and when we have? We
actually do have regional medical stores. So they've been in existence for a long time. And so, you know, at the time, one of the things that saved us a little bit was that we had some of the, you know, some stock at the regional level.
Oh, okay. So,
you know,
it's
so
not like
it
we're
wasn't
keeping everything here?
No, no. But lessons, you know, yes, definitely. I mean, you know, making sure that the stores are better protected against fire, ensuring the stores, making sure that at any one time pipeline analysis is clear so we know exactly what is where. You know, basically not putting all our eggs in one basket. I think that we're going to be reconstructing the medical stores, but do it in a modern manner where we would have modern gadgets to check the stock. But more importantly, I think if you refer to His Excellency's State of the Nation address there last February, he talked about going the way of framework contracting. So not doing the old things that we used to do with the central medical stores, but doing some of the things that countries are doing to bring down the prices of drugs. For example, you know, going to tender on some of the drugs that we use a lot of the time to make sure that we get economies of scale, you know, so that we get better pricing and so on. But out of every misfortune and disaster can come something that would then bring hope. And we're hoping that out of this we would get a better process by which we manage our pharmaceuticals and so on.
Is the ministry endorsing this one Ghana cedi contribution?
I think you know, every kind of support is welcome. I know that I was not in the country when the Honorable Minister received a large donation from the Pharmaceutical Society, and I think they've gone ahead to try and get some more support for us, which is welcome. Okay.
All right. I thank you for your time, and I wish you the very best in your negotiations with the doctors. We're counting down. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Victor Mampo, Deputy Minister of Health, my guests on my banner. Stay with us. We still have a lot more coming your way.